What's up, guys? Welcome to another playoff series matchup prediction video. And today we're going to be talking about the Washington Capitals and the New York Rangers first round matchup. The Washington Capitals, after a year hiatus of not making the playoffs, are back in it, this time facing a team that they're familiar with, the New York Rangers. They've faced them 4 times before, only winning 1 out of the 4 recent matchups against them, and that was back in 2011. In 2012, 2013, and 2015, the New York Rangers uh, beat them and moved on to the next round. So this year is the 5th time that these two teams will meet, and we shall see who wins. But you basically have David versus Goliath in terms of both these teams. You have the Capitals, who essentially waited to the last game to clinch a playoff spot, surpassing the likes of Detroit, Pittsburgh Penguins, and the Philadelphia Flyers, beating the Philadelphia Flyers 2-1 with a TG Oshie empty net goal that allowed them to punch their ticket to the 2024 playoffs versus the Rangers. The Rangers have won the President's Trophy, are arguably the best team in the league. This is a team that knows that they need to win now. Artemi Panarin has stated it in multiple interviews. He even shaved his head because he thought that his hair was a curse and keeping the team from being successful in the playoffs. And this year in the regular season, he showed that his bald head has been working miracles, and they won the President's Trophy. So, and they continue to hope to have that same success in the playoffs as well. So, with that out of the way, New York Rangers versus Washington Capitals. Can the Washington Capitals do the unthinkable, like we've seen a couple of times in the past, like last year, Florida eliminating the Boston Bruins? That was a complete shocker to a lot of people. Or even going back to a time where the Washington Capitals were the favorites and the Montreal Canadiens eliminated them in the first round way back then. So can we see a scenario where that plays out, or do you think the New York Rangers are way too good to let that happen?
I don't think it's a question of the Rangers being way too good. I think it's a question of the Caps just not being good enough. Like, look,
that's a cold statement.
I'm just gonna be. Let's just be real, guys. Like, I don't want to be disrespectful to Washington fans who are happy that they're in this position, but this is a team that does not really or should not be in the playoffs at all. All right, like let's address the elephant in the room, which is the fact that this is a team that had a negative 37 goal differential, okay, in the NHL, and they made the playoffs. Now, you can argue, yeah, they made the playoffs because other teams in front of them didn't win. Agreed, right? They made the playoffs. They won the games they were supposed to win. They ended up making it. Good for them. But they're not a good team. Like Dylan Strome, their highest point scorer is Dylan Strome with 67. Ovechkin has 65. He has 31 goals. He had a really slow start to the year. He only picked it up as of late, and that's pretty much one of the only reasons why the Capitals are where they are. John Carlson, 52 points, and then it just completely drops off. Tom Wilson, 35. Connor McMichael, 33. Alexei Protas, 29. That's Alexei Protas, who is 6th in scoring, has 29 points. Okay? That's just not good enough. And then, let's also talk. We talk about some of the best goalies in the league. Well, Charlie Lindgren, in my opinion, should get Hart votes. Now, the only reason I'm saying that is because this guy had a 911 save percentage, 267 goals against average, and 6 shutouts. He won 25 games. He started 50 games, won 25 of them, 16 losses, 7 overtime losses. This guy stood on his head at the end of the season and gave Washington a reason to make it to the playoffs. Darcy Kemper, 13 wins, 14 losses, 890 save percentage, just not good enough. Hasn't been good enough all season. And Hunter Shepard played 4 games with the Capitals, 2 wins, 1 loss, 1 overtime loss, 894 save percentage for him. So, realistically, the Caps made it in here because their goaltending kept them in it, or Charlie Lindgren kept them in it, and Ovechkin started scoring at the end of the season. But besides that, nothing really has been that impressive with this team. And again, this isn't to take away from the fact that they made the playoffs. I'm just trying to be as transparent as possible. You look at the league average on the power play, 20.91%. The Capitals are below league average on the power play at 20.61. Their PK percentage, the league average is 79.9. Their PK percentage is 78.97. So they're below league average on the power play and they're below league average on the PK. This is a team that is 28th in goals forward with 220 goals forward and 17th in the league in goals against with 257 goals against. How is this team in the playoffs? Like I don't understand how this team's in the playoffs.
If I'm not mistaken, this is the team with the worst plus and minus ever to reach a playoff spot, right?
Exactly. So on top of that, like they have the worst goals against worst goal differential in the league, worst plus minus in the league, stuff like that in terms of like playoff teams. It freaks me out that they're in this position, but they are. And look, we've seen underdog stories before. We've seen crazy situations happen before, but this just looks like they're going to be severely outmatched by the Rangers. Like if you look at the Rangers, okay, they're sixth in the league in goals for with 282. Goals against are 229. They're seventh in the league in goals against. Okay, you look at their power play. Their power play is 26.42, so way above league average. Their penalty kill is 84.48, so way above league average. Like, just that in itself is already better than Washington. Go look at the Washington Capitals. Look at the top 6 players for the Rangers. Panarin, 120 points. Trocheck, 77. Kreider, 75. Adam Fox, 73. Mika Zibanejad, 72. Alexis Lafreniere, 57. Eric Gustafsson, 31. Keandre Miller, 30. The top 8 guys on the Rangers have more points than Washington's 6th highest point scorer. That's ridiculous.
What makes me laugh is that like Alex Wenberg and Jack Roslovich, who were playing for non-playoff teams that were added at the trade deadline, have more points than Washington's 6th best forward or 6th best player. Sorry, in terms of points. Which is laughable. I mean,
if you count both their totals with the other team too, then yes. But it puts into perspective, like just how crazy this situation, like this series is, just how one-sided it looks like this series is going to be. I mean, even goaltending wise, like Charlie Lindgren's had a great season, but Igor Shesterkin, who a lot of people have been saying that Igor Shesterkin has had a down year, okay? And for a down year, he's got 36 wins, 17 losses, 2 overtime losses, 9-12 save percentage, and 4 shutouts. You think that's bad? Okay, that's on a Shesterkin down year apparently. Now Jonathan Quick, who's had good moments this season and has played really well, 18 wins, 6 losses, 2 overtime losses, 9-11 save percentage, 2.62 goals against average, 2 shutouts. So Jonathan Quick has the same save percentage as Charlie Lindgren, and he's the backup, right? And then you have Louis Domingue, who's got 1 win in 1 game played and 962 save percentage. Like this Rangers team, like we don't even have to look at the lineups. I don't even think. I think just based on statistics,
we still will.
I know we still will.
Fair analysis.
I'm saying their caps are severely outmatched here. Like, I'm not saying that to try to be disrespectful. I'm a fan of Ovi. I like Ovechkin. I think, I want him to chase another cup ring. I want him to beat Gretzky's goal record. But going into this playoffs, like they're not good enough. Like the Rangers are going to steamroll these guys, I think. And they might win 1 game, and if they win 1 game, it's maybe because Charlie Lindgren faces 50 shots and saves all of them, and they win 1-0 or something like that. But I don't see it. I just don't see how Washington beats the Rangers. And if they somehow eliminate the Rangers out of the playoffs, Peter Laviolette should be fired, because at that point, like there's just no excuse. There's zero excuse for you to lose to this Washington team. Like with how bad they are on paper, there's no way for you to lose this. So I'm gonna say this. I think the Rangers are gonna win in 4, maybe 5, but I think they win this in 4. I don't think it's even a competition. I think they're not even gonna break a sweat. That's my personal opinion. So, Chris, I don't know if you want to jump in, but
look, I mean, I agree with basically everything you've stated. Like even Jonathan Quick, who's in the twilight years of his career, is posting better numbers than Charlie Lindgren and Darcy Kemper. And you would think that Darcy Kemper, former Stanley Cup winner with the Colorado Avalanche, would be the starting goaltender. And in this case, you have Charlie Lindgren, who Um, such an incredible story. Being drafted, being signed by the Montreal Canadiens out of the NCAA, and never really getting a shot there since he always had Carey Price. Goes and becomes a journeyman a little bit through the NHL, finds a spot with the Washington Capitals, and has been great last couple of years with them. And now he's become their starting goaltender. And he's a huge reason why they made the playoffs. Because if Darcy Kemper was in Nets, it would have been the likes of the Detroit Red Wings, to be honest with you, that would have been in the spot facing the New York Rangers. Um, and honestly, maybe that would have been a better matchup. Maybe they would have put up a little bit more of a fight. It would have been a little bit more interesting seeing the Brinkat and Patty Kane, or maybe even the Pittsburgh Penguins seeing a guy like Sidney Crosby and Malkin and Letang and Eric Carlson. So, I mean, do I believe the best team out of the so-called bubble teams to try to make it for that last wild card spot has made it in? No, I think it was probably the second weakest team behind the Philadelphia Flyers, and I think it just came down to no one really wanting that spot at the end of the season, and it just came down to, okay, well, Washington has more points because they had a pretty good start to the season, as we spoke about in our Washington Capitals video, if they would make the playoffs, and we stated that. And because of that good cushion at the beginning of the year, that really solidified themselves to clinch that spot. And Ovi hasn't been great that this year. He was better the second half of the season, like after the new year. He's been hot, so having a hot Ovi is great. But can Ovi withstand the likes of the juggernauts that are the New York Rangers? I highly doubt it. He's going to need support, and TG Oshie is not the player he once was. They traded Manta, who was a 20-goal scorer, to the Vegas Golden Knights, which was one of their best players this year. So he's out of the picture. They added Max Pacioretty. He's been doing fairly okay, nothing great to what he used to do with the Montreal Canadiens or even his time with the Las Vegas Golden Knights. You know, Dylan Strom is their best player. And when Dylan Strom is their best player, you have to start asking yourself some questions here. And even Tom Wilson, who signed a lucrative, extension as well, hasn't been great either this year. A lot of down years for a lot of, top Capitals players. But there's been some good signs. We've been seeing, the development of Hendrix Lapierre and Connor McMichael and Protas, and seeing that they're going to be, great players for years to come for the Washington Capitals, and their future is going to be bright. Compared to the likes of the Pittsburgh Penguins, who are rivals and don't really have any great young prospects to look forward to. And you could also throw in Rasmus Sandin that they've acquired last year at the deadline, from the Toronto Maple Leafs. So they have things to look forward to. But this is probably their last time making the playoffs at Ovi, in my opinion. And I don't think it's going to be a very long series. They would be lucky to even win one game. So I would have to say this is either going to be a sweep by the New York Rangers or a 5-game series between the two. The New York Rangers just completely stacked. They didn't go as crazy as they did last year at the deadline, which I think ruined their chemistry by adding Kane and Tarasenko. This year they were more conservative, and they added Wenberg and Roslovic. And they also had a guy in Matt Rempe who's been making a lot of noise this year and solidified himself on the fourth line,
And
being an aggressive player, challenging a lot of people in fights. But it's also important to note that Alexis Lafreniere has been having his best season yet, and he's finally finding himself to be in the top six forward. And unfortunately, Capo Caco, not so great. But regardless of that, in terms of Caco's case, this is still a very good team. As long as you still have Zibanejad, Panarin, Trocheck, Kreider as your core players on offense, and you have Adam Fox on defense, and Keandre Miller, who's a very underrated and great defenseman, and also Jacob Trouba, one of the best bottom pairing defensemen in the league, despite his shenanigans and his antics. This is a very well-rounded team in terms of goaltending, defense, and offense. Probably one of the best three teams in the league compared to one of the I would say the weakest playoff team, um, right now. And like I said, miracles can happen. We've seen crazier things happen, but we'll see what happens. But I would also like to mention another thing. This is a battle between brothers. Ryan Lindgren, defenseman of the New York Rangers, facing off against his brother, starting goaltender of the Washington Capitals, Charlie Lindgren. So that's going to be interesting to see as well.
Yeah, the other thing that I want to add is Filipino is skating, so there is a possibility that at some point during these playoffs he does come back. So that also would just add fuel to the fire for the Rangers, in the sense that they would be adding another very good player in Filipino. So it it just to me like, look, you know what it is like, it's one of those things where it's like I like underdog stories. Okay, I've always been the type of, like, I've always rooted for the underdog. I've always wanted the underdog to win. I feel like it's always better to do so. Like, one example of an underdog team is the 2021 Montreal Canadiens, who, you know, shocked everybody when they beat the Leafs, and then they beat Winnipeg, and then they beat Vegas, and they went to the Cup final. But, you know, for me, I don't think a team is going to be able to replicate that, you know, to the same way. And I just don't think Washington have the same caliber in terms of being able to replicate that. You know, I'm not saying that it's impossible. I mean, the playoffs are a new season, and anything can happen. But I just look at the Capitals, I look at where they're at, I look at their team, and I'm just, nothing impresses me about it. And I just, it's very hard for me to like find any reason to say like, oh, Washington's gonna win this series. Like, I don't see it. So I'm gonna go like you said. I think they're gonna win. I'm gonna say 4, and I'm gonna call it a day. I don't really have anything else to say apart from that. I think the
Um,
Rangers are just too good for this.
Yeah, I mean, I would probably say a couple more things. I think it's great to see Ovi in the playoffs again,
Yeah,
and it's great to see this last hurrah probably for Ovechkin in the playoffs, and for some of these players that are aging like Max Pacioretty and TG Oshie and John Carlson. But you know, it's going to be a very interesting off season for this team. They're going to be moving a couple of players. I would probably think a guy like Nick Dowd, who generated a lot of interest. Max Pacioretty even generated a lot of interest. I don't know if he would be coming back, even though he opted to stay with the Washington Capitals and nixed the trade to actually go and play for the New York Rangers. So it's funny how he's facing the team that he could have been playing for right now. But yeah, just complete complete one-sided matchup in terms of these two, and I wish nothing but the best for the Washington Capitals, and I hope they make this series interesting. We never want to see a shortened series. We always want to see 6-7 games in a series, but unfortunately there's times where a team is just way too good, and in this case that's what it is. The New York Rangers have everything that it takes to be not only um, a contender, but probably a Stanley Cup favorite, in my opinion. But
yeah.
guys, we'd like to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. Who wins this playoff series between the New York Rangers and the Washington Capitals? Again, these are our takes, so please do not feel offended. We know that our takes are not always going to be the most popular around the hockey community, but there are takes, there are opinions. This is our own analysis. We'd like to hear what you guys have to say in the comment section below. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel if you haven't already, and we'll see you on the next episode of the Young Guns Podcast. Thank you so much, guys, for watching.